Hi everyone, I'm Mark Lawrence. I head up the Association for Electronic Music with a global voice for the genre, tackling the issues that are unique to our music and to our community. As Pete introduced, I think this year, the last 12 months, has seen a seismic shift in electronic music, not in the creativity or the talent, but in the threats that our genre is facing today, from 5 deaths in Time Warp, Argentina, 5 deaths in Manila only last week, and what seems to be an increasing number of drug-related incidents affecting the live sector. But at the same time, we're also seeing seismic shifts in the companies and the businesses in electronic music. I think many of us will be aware of the changes in SFX as it went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy and the recent changes announced by Beatport. So it seems for the first time in what feels like 5 or 6 years, the commercial environment of electronic music is facing challenges, and the live sector is facing its own unique challenges from other incidents relating to health and drug consumption. So really, today's panel is about understanding if we've reached a tipping point. And if we have reached a tipping point, then the discussion is, what are we going to do about it? So if I could just ask everybody to introduce themselves briefly, starting with Joseph on my right, and a little bit about yourself and what you do. Kind of, we all know, but say it anyway.
Yes, so everyone, and hello to everybody. It's Joseph Capriati, and I'm happy to be here for the first time to speaking to a convention. So I'm very emotional and nervous for this, but yeah. So
I'm Maria May, and an agent at CAA in London.
Hi, Eelko from Kooten. Manage Spinnin Records, the #1 dance record label of the world.
Hi, I'm Tommy Vaudecrane, president of Technopol, which is the French lobby association for electronic music since 1996. And we also organize Techno Parade and Paris Electronic Week.
I'm Terry Weerasinghe. I'm SVP of Marketing and Analytics at Beatport.
Brilliant, thanks everyone. Joseph, if I could turn to you first. I think last year there was some tragic events in Italy at Cocorico. Could you just tell everybody what happened at the club?
basically what happened is there were few people dying, not only in Cocorico, but also in the south of Italy, and in few big clubs, few important clubs that are like symbol of Italian scene. And this completely changed the mood in Italy, the scene, and of course, the government were pushing more hard and harder than what they did before, because the problem in Italy basically is like, the real problem in Italy is the mentality that, the government creates to the young people, because they see the electronic scene like something like, hardcore, when you see the television, they talk about, clubs, they say like raves, they talk it. So it's like, for them, it's like we are like, outside in a mountain, completely naked, 3-4 days non-stop, dancing, that's the view of the government. So the young people, what they do actually is like going out without knowing what they do and give a real, hardcore power, which is like, for example, when our mothers does say, don't smoke, you go to smoke. And she say, you don't have to smoke, and you smoke. That's the same. So we have this kind of, hard pushing from the world government and the world also, normal people. So people try to escape and really do something that they really don't understand what it's doing. Just they do it because it's good to do the opposite of what the people want you do.
And after the incident took place, how did the industry respond? How did agents, importantly, respond?
Well, sadly, the most of artists and agents and clubs, they try to escape. You know what I mean? They say, okay, Italy is gone. You know what I mean? Let's go outside. They start to talk bad of Italian scene instead of help the Italian scene. So I think, one of the real few that try to help, especially for Cocorico, which is an Italian icon, an Italian, legendary club. And for me, it really broke my heart to see when you see on the television, like, close at Cocorico for a debt, then 6 months closing. The guys really were going to bankrupt, or, Italy just won that this kind of clubs now close. And for me, it's like just heartbroken, because the most important thing we have in Italy right now is the Cocorico and Cromi and all the River Park in Napoli, which also closed it too for a debt. So basically, what I did is, like, when there were the real troubles with Cocorico, and also artists didn't want to come back because they also lost money, so they didn't pay some artists. And can happen. I can understand some artists were like upset, like, oh, we didn't get paid, so never more. Well, I say, okay, I wanna trust that this is gonna be like a relaunch of the club. So I just played there like 1 month ago, and was the one real sold out party since months. So I can see a growing, and what I saw right now, there were also in the crowd, like older crowd. I don't see anymore this kind of really teenagers, they lose the mind. I see there is more like a selection right now. What they didn't do before, the clubs in Italy, this is the problem. They don't do a selection. They just put in, sold out, a club like this. There is no age limit, you can enter if you are 15 years old, and this is what is the problem actually, because for electronic music, I think you should have, electronic music doesn't have age, of course, but to be in this kind of, clubs and, in contact with older people, should to be mature enough, I think. So I think 18 years old should be the limit. And this helps. And the Cocorico now, they have this, regulation, minimum 18 years old. It works. Also, they did some privé as well, which was no good before, which is, means, the scene wants to get more mature. They don't want to just put in. This is nice.
And Tommy, if I can turn to you, your event and your organisation has faced its own issues, to a degree, some kind of a lack of respect potentially from government over the years, and also, its own sad incident as well at the parade last year, I think. So.
Yeah, well, Technopol was created actually because they were political and governmental issues with electronic music. In '96 in France, any type of electronic music event was stopped by the police, should it be commercial or underground, sometimes using tear gas, riot police. So the essence of Technopol was to show to the government, to the media, that electronic music was a culture, was an industry, and needed to be recognized. So we had a lot of institutional work, a lot of work done with the government to position the artists, the labels, the clubs, and the festivals, and explain that behind this kind of scary, crazy thing for any normal person, there was artists. So we first got the Techno Parade, that was the recognition of electronic music as a culture by the different ministries we were talking with, and now we've been working since then to create the French market, the French industry, which kind of popped out really on a large scale around 7 years ago, and I think we'll have a focus on the market tomorrow, so we can show it a bit more in details. But one of the important things, I think, is not to face the problems, to face the issues and to solve them, to explain and to educate and to show that we can make money with music, but there is also culture behind, to show the impact of electronic music on tourism, on employment, on taxes. And I think this is really what we've been seeing very strongly the past 5 years, and mostly in the city of Paris, where we have a lot of support from the city hall, from the local governments. There was a report, a governmental French report, that said that electronic music was one of the solutions to relaunch the cultural industry in France. So they really embrace the topic. And even if we had the most recent tragic events in November that gave a bit of slow down on the industry, I think French people have been waiting for so long for the market to emerge, and not only on the mainstream part, but all the parts. Techno music is getting very big in France. It's one of the biggest countries now where we have all the artists coming around. And we saw that even though we had these tragic events in November, everybody was united and dedicated to making and creating a market. And we see so many new festivals, new types of parties, that I think the moment we are living in the industry globally and in some specific country is the moment where we should think about who we are, what we represent, and not only business. Business is good, we all need to live and make money, but behind there, what's the cultural message we send to the institutions, and what's going to stay in the story is not the money we made, but the artists that made the music and that created these genres. So I think this is where we should be fighting for the recognition with the governments, with the institutions, and try to make sure that beyond the business, there is also this personal involvement of people bringing their strengths, their ideas to create new models and to make sure that people can do parties safely, but not only thinking about this drug problem. I mean, Holland is a very good example with Amsterdam and the policy they have during ADE, for example, supporting people and making sure they do it the good way. The big problem today is that a lot of countries ban drugs, do not have any drug prevention policy, so people just take anything instead of taking good drugs and not getting endangered and bringing it to the incidents we had in Manila or in Argentina.
It's interesting to pick up on some of the words you used. I think you used the phrase or the word united, which, you know, unity has always been a core value of our music since it began. And also I think emerging already is this kind of sense of fight or flight as issues come our way. I think when things are going well, there's, you know, then everyone's happy, but as soon as things go down, it really starts to push on the unity within our industry. So, I mean, Maria, from your perspective as an agent, you've really got to balance big business, contracts, the perception of your talent versus supporting the industry. So when things happen at a club like Cocorico or at any event around the world, Time Warp in particular is another good example, what's your response? How do you manage your decision making?
Well, I mean, these problems aren't going away. I've been working in dance music for nearly 25 years now, and, you know, 1992, the Graham Bright Bill in the UK, we fought the Criminal Justice Bill and all sorts of clamps downs on parties which were ultimately related to drug issues. My only response is, you know, I'm a very proud advisory board member of the AFEM, and the issues that we're discussing at the moment, and in order to become, you know, the best that we can be and as professional as we can be at dealing with all these issues, I think is the only way forward. And people do need to step up and put their necks out and support people around us in order that we, you know, run our businesses very, very professionally.
If I can move along, slight change of tack for you, Terry, as well. From a commercial perspective, obviously the changes in the financial situation at SFX have impacted on Beatport, and it's certainly been challenging for everybody. How has the media responded, and how have the labels responded?
I think there's actually been quite a positive response from the media. I think they understand the situation very well, and the reality of the situation is that the store is the main source of income for thousands of independent labels, and by focusing our business on the store, we can provide the backbone for those labels, but also we can start to innovate again for our core customers, which is the DJ. And as a byproduct of that now, with the new changes, Beatport's a profitable company again, which can only be a good thing for the industry.
And Eelko, I mean, your label is a big label on Beatport, obviously. I think there's obviously been a challenging time for Beatport. Some labels have considered whether they keep their support with Beatport. What's the Spinnin position? Are you dedicated to Beatport to make sure that you fight for their survival rather than fly away like others may?
For us, you know, it's important that we speak with Beatport and not with SFX, for example. It's a holding company who has problems and not Beatport as it was or as it used to be. They were very supportive towards to us when we wanted to promote our records in the early phase when Beatport was growing popularity. And we are still on board with them and we support them full, big time. So they have a niche market where they are really focused in and trying new things on their platform. And we are always very supportive to these kinds of things with Beatport and also with other platforms. We are an entrepreneurial independent and we want to try new things, new marketing, new platform streaming, downloads. We were the first label on board with Beatport on the stream platform and we keep on supporting them, yes.
One of the things we had the Board of Advisors meeting this morning for the association, and we are just in the early stages now of preparing a harm reduction campaign for North America, which is the first territory that we should focus our efforts on, which is to lobby for change in the legal and political environment for promoters to raise the level of harm reduction they can publicly achieve. And for the first time, certainly in the 2 years that I've been with the association, everybody realized that the impact of poor standards of harm reduction and the lack of ability for promoters to be very open about either drug testing or drug education impacts the entire industry, because what we've seen that's unique in the last year, we've seen LA County review whether or not electronic music events should take place. We helped them work out a decision that wasn't to ban the events, but was to change the way in which they were held if there were over 15,000 people. But then, sure enough, San Bernardino next door then decides that it will also commence reviewing whether or not electronic music events should take place. And those are two of the largest territories in the world for electronic music. At the same time, we now have electronic music festivals, over 15,000 banned in Argentina, and for 24 hours clubs were banned. Electronic music festivals are banned in Malaysia, and there's a kind of disappointing trend emerging. And the point of this really is that A, we need to pull together and step up, and B, you can bet your bottom dollar that everybody in this room will be impacted if we don't step up. I think previously, labels have seen drug-related issues as somebody else's problem. Publishers have seen drug-related issues as somebody else's problem. But when markets start to close down and the music gets prohibited because the media portrays the music as the problem, not the criminals selling the drugs, when a scene starts to get closed down, all those stats at the beginning that Kevin Watson presented suddenly get called into question, particularly when Argentina is one of your three growth markets kind of driving change. China, another one. China, very, very close to Malaysia, as I said earlier, has already banned events. So I think the time has really come for everybody to start to trade the knowledge and experience they've got. So kind of looking at Italy, it sounds like it's got a lot to learn from France about working with government and portraying itself more professionally. Do you think that's fair?
I don't know if in Italy can happen this right now, but I think, step by step we're gonna get in some different mood and some different point of meeting with them. The problem is that, the government in Italy is like all the people, you know what I mean? So this is a problem, I think, not only in Italy. Many countries, as they shall tomorrow have younger people governing the country. But, there are some, for example, in the television, something is happening. There were a program called on Rachel, I don't remember right now. There was a guy which is also in Ibiza the whole summer, and he really tried to put on the mainstream television a program on electronic music. So, and it was kind of working, People start, talking about the DJs, the DJ life, or there is the connection with the dance floor, and this is super interesting for even older people, which kind of, for example, my mother say, "Hi, I saw you on Rachel," and they were like interesting because they know more about our world and they are more kind of relaxed. But yeah, I don't know. For right now, I don't think he's gonna get this. We are trying to get into it. already the time, I think.
And Tommy, I don't think that France is necessarily out of the woods in terms of drug policy legislation. I think it's still quite challenging there. Is that right?
I think we have a terrible drug policy in France. We don't have any testing in events. We don't have any information, or we can't. It's very. You should be very careful in what you say and what you don't say, because if, for example, you give information about a specific drug, you get, like if you were bringing people to take it, so it's incitation. So that's a point that is very weak on the French market, but still, we see that once we were structured, we had political lobby, we had organized businesses, associations, showing that they can comply with all the other restrictive rules for events organization. Drugs was not the main issue anymore. I think we should just show that it exists, it's a problem, but it's not a problem linked to a music or a culture. It's a problem linked to a governmental policy. A country has to be responsible of its children, and you can't give very restrictive security rules, financial rules to a promoter, and then when there's a death saying, hey, it's your fault, there was drugs in your event. When the people are searched at the entrance, when you invest 30 or 40% of your budget in security, then you can't say that you didn't implement enough for people to be secure in your event. So we are very careful with this, and media really stopped talking about this negative and very easy way to just bring down electronic music. And we came up with a bit more mature talks with the journalists. We found also that we had a lot of journalists that were supporting us, so big media came out with very positive stories around our artists, around our culture, and not only the business, as I said before, but how we contributed in growing the cultural image of France through the electronic music. And this was in Holland, I think, a big point also. It's part of the culture now. So we're not just talking about can I do this or that. Of course, we still have people who don't like electronic music. We have a lot of local governments who ban events. We saw I Love Techno that was canceled 30 minutes before the event 2 years ago. So we still have problems, but the way it's understood by the government and by the media doesn't put us in front of talks, low-level talks like, hey, you have drugs, so we have to ban the event. They need now to build up a more mature approach and work with us, listen to us also. So we see now a few drug testing associations that come in events. We start being able to send out a few messages, and they understand that if they help us build up more secure events, it will contribute to the culture, to the economy, to the tourism, and maybe even more in the years to come. So we really shifted in the past 20 years, but we've been working hard on it since 20 years also. So I think that's why we see results now. So I hope it will go faster for the global market. If not, we'll all be old when it goes better. But it's definitely an issue that was brought down from the moment where there was an institutional recognition of the electronic music as a culture and as diversified genres, diversified types of events also, because in France we have a very strong festival and club scene, but we have a very strong underground scene with underground, almost illegal raves, and sometimes they even go better than commercial events. So both communities working together also showed that we were mature enough to speak to each other, even if we were different. And it really helped showing that there was a united electronic music market and culture, and that we couldn't just be divided by these low-level discussions around drug abuse, bad products, or any other thing that we see in the past years in other countries, mostly in emerging markets, where that's, and it's normal. The first thing they see is the issue, is the negative part. Then it's associations like AFEM and big players that should show that behind this, you have artists, you have cultures, you have employment, you have tourism, and therefore it's a positive impact for the country, and the country should work with the organizations to set up a global electronic music policy that includes harm reduction on a mature way, saying yes, we have drugs, how do you take them, if you take them, and what you shouldn't take, giving out mostly drug alerts, which has worked very well, saying this is a bad product, don't take it. And I think when we get there, we can move on in other discussions.
Maria, do you think we've reached a tipping point?
I think there have been more drug deaths in the last year associated with electronic music than there have been in a very, very long time, and I think that has a direct impact on our business on a global level and on a local level. You know, the politics of dancing, you know, you're seeing in Argentina at the moment people using this as a political way of gaining ways of, you know, using it as a way of, you know, furthering their political careers. You know, there are so many different ways to approach this. You know, it's illegal, but yet it's a double standard in our industry that, you know, part of our culture involves this. So you know, as a parent, you know, I would like to see an industry standard that exists for things like crowd control, free water, cool down areas. You know, these issues in this discussion interest me. I would like to see, you know, knowing that if I'm going to a club or a young person's going to a club, there are some measures in place for people if they get into trouble. And I think it's up to us to recognise that and actually try and support that everywhere. And I do think that we need to be seen to be doing this as an industry, that we are protecting the young people that come and participate in ultimately what we're all making. You know, we love music, but ultimately what we're making a living out of.
Yeah, I think it's time for us to show our true qualities and really step up. Eelko, when I talk about the impact on labels if electronic music festivals get closed down in territories around the world, do you, I guess to be blunt, do you agree with me? Do you think there's a risk that the consumption of electronic music can start to fall, and that as bans start to be put in place, there's a risk?
It's horrible for the dance music industry as in whole that it happens, you know, and it does happen, and not necessarily in the dance music itself, but also at home, for example, or in a bar. So it's maybe a little bit overrated that it happens at dance festivals. In Holland we have good checkings at the gates, you know, and that's not only because of drugs, but that's also for arms, you know, like guns or knives. So it helps the security as well, the checkings. It's not only about the drugs. But for us, as a dance label, we stay away from violence, political things, and drugs. And we don't see a direct link between that at a festival and selling music, no.
Okay. One of the key things I think we've seen over the last year as the incidents have started to happen, and actually to a degree I think how SFX has also been treated is the media. And it seems to me that the media is increasingly sensationalizing the story rather than taking a grown-up approach and helping us to make the right things happen. And instead it's kind of inflaming the situation. I know, Terry, you said that the media are okay with Beatport, but in general, how do you think they were about SFX?
They've made it into a bit of a caricature, you know, without a doubt. But, you know, there were a lot of crazy things going on at the same time. I mean, it's definitely true that the media are not fact-checking these days, and they're going out with the sensational stories. They're looking to get clickbait and, you know, get any way of getting the traffic at the moment. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, to be totally honest.
And so just kind of selfishly from your perspective, what do you need the industry to do for you, and what support do you need from our community?
Well, I mean, the great thing is that everyone with us has been really supportive, like Eelko. All of the labels have given us their full support. The release schedules haven't changed. The store's doing incredibly well, actually. I mean, take the top charted tracks on RA. RA's top 10 labels for this year have all sold more on Beatport than they did last year. So we've had great support, and yeah, we think there's a very positive future for the store.
So, a very direct question then, from a very selfish Beatport perspective, what is the future of our industry for you? Is it rosy, positive, tenuous?
No, I think it's very positive. Like I say, we're in the position where we're the #1 store in electronic music. We're concentrating all of our resources into what we're good at, and we can then invest everything into growing that as a market. And is there a market for a store where DJs buy all of their tracks? I think there is going to be for a very long time.
Yeah. Tommy, if I can ask you the same, from your perspective, from the French market, looking to the future, is it safe, is it positive, or do we need to act and be kind of custodians of our future?
Well, talking about the French market, I think we have very positive years coming up. Since 5 years, the market has grown very strongly. We saw a lot of new festivals, clubs, artists. Paris is often pointed out as one of the most attractive cities for electronic music. France is a huge country, so we have still a lot of new events, new festivals to create. We have more and more crowd, more and more people going out in events, listening to diverse type of musics. So I think what a lot of people have been working and fighting on since 20 years is showing results today. So I think we have some experience to share with growing countries. You were talking about the regulations and the policies to make events safer for people. Free water is something we have in all our events now, and you can have a fine if you don't have free water, for example. So all these things came out from personal experience, tragic events or successes. And I think that now that we are talking global market, because our artists, our festivals are exporting a lot of music, are selling a lot in foreign countries, it's a moment to unite everybody and think on a global scale. What are the best practices in each countries? What worked well, and how we can develop industry standards, not being scared to talk about problems, because I think when you go in, each country has its own cultural, religious background, and when you get in a country saying, hey, your kids might be taking drugs, some of them can say, no, we don't want that at all, and it can stop them right away. So I think it's really thinking on a global scale now, sharing best practices, and we can make something great out of this industry that already is great and has been making people dance for almost 25 years. So I think we still have a few nice days in front of us, but facing the problems and not just saying we didn't see anything will solve a lot for the global market and enable nice countries in Asia and South America to grow big events in a secure environment and to create a long-term market, not just surf on a bubble and wait for the next one.
Joseph, do you see that? Do you agree that if we take the best practice from every country and raise the standards in every country and get more professional, that we have a bright future still ahead of us as an electronic music genre and community?
I think, yeah, it's possible. I didn't really understand the question about.
So in France, they're making sure that they work with the government, they work with them for 20 years to build a strong reputation, to lobby for the highest possible production standards, for harm reduction, pushing for drug testing, just making everything more professional and more safe. If we can achieve that across the world,
I think this is a good way to resolve this problem. But of course, we'll not resolve it 100%. Drug, we're gonna be everywhere for sure. It's like mafia, you know. It's like you try, you know, to control, you try to make it more professionally, to you know, avoid the situation, but it's impossible to really delete this problem. Yeah. The most important is education first, and of course, you know, connect with the people and make them understand what they are doing first, because most of them, they don't know what they're doing. Drug test is very important as well, so they see, you know, if somebody wants to do something wrong, they know there is a control, but still, if somebody wants to do it, he does, you know. But the most important is the education, I think. This is what every country needs, and most of the country I play in the world, I see there is the education. The countries where there is less education, and there is more difference between, you know, the normal people and the clubbers, and you know, we are seen like enemies. Then where happens the problems, you know. If you see, Italy is one of them. Argentina as well, because I think in Argentina the government doesn't really care about what happens in the clubs until the bomb exploded, you know. So it's like it's a bomb with a clock. You never know when it explodes. It's like, especially when you see, you know, the scene like growing so fast. For example, in Italy, in the last 10 years, man, like, you know, every DJ play in Italy. Every DJ come to Italy also because they say they pay big fees. But you know why? Because huge clubs, super full of people, and most of the festivals are full thanks to Italian crowd. And in Italy, we had this growing in the last 10 years, like unbelievable. And I was really thinking like, when the bomb is going to explode, you know, because when you see the growing fest, there is no a proper control, a proper selection, a proper, you know, education, you know, it's going to happen. So I was ready for that, to be honest, but I really didn't expect that many events came, everything together. You remember last summer, like 3-4 deaths in 6 months, which is a lot, you know. It's like only in August 2-3. Make you understand now the situation is like really.
I think it's also interesting now to see artists coming from, and DJs coming from behind the decks to talk about the issues and step up on behalf of our music. And you know, we've seen Beatport here last year, yourself this year, and in the US increasingly people like Cascade and others. Maria, do you think it's time to let more artists kind of come to the front of the stage on the issues and speak up?
If more artists want to step up, they should, 100%. And certainly get more focus to the issues. I mean, you know, our industry was about rebellion 20 years ago, and make no bones about it, we are a global industry now, and the grown-up people in our global industry need to, you know, help the young people along and actually I keep saying it, but I'm so passionate. But I don't want ever on my watch, on any of my shows, for there to be a drug death. I always want to work with people that are taking care of the audience. And I want young people to be more aware about the dangers involved with drug taking, even if it's an advisory level or there's a system set up for them where this, you know, I don't want to keep going on about this, but, you know, yes, artists, 100% should step up if they want to.
And from a Spinnin perspective, do we have a bright future? Is there a risk? When you look at your business, is everything going to be fine, or do you see that there could be trouble ahead?
I just held a keynote speech where I said the future is bright and there's a lot of things happening and there's a lot of possibilities and new things coming up. Yeah, the world is growing, the musical world. The fan base is using and absorbing more music, which is really great. They are open for new trends, new genres, from pop music to classical music to dance music, which is really great. So the consuming of music is much more than it used to be. And it's much easier to consume it, get it by downloads or streams, even without payment, because there's advertising income who's paying the labels and the writers and the producers. So it's much more, it's easier to consume music. The world of music is becoming bigger. Now Music is paid for in South America, is paid for in Asia. China is coming up. They already consuming music, but now they will gonna pay for the music itself as well. So that's a new trend. There are more endorsements, sync deals, more platforms. So the music stream itself has become bigger, the music use become bigger, and the payout is even higher, which enables us to invest in new talent, new platforms, and to keep ahead of the new trends and set it.
It seems to me just to...
Right.
Sorry.
And it's great to be in the music industry, you know, at these times. 5 years ago, it was really hard, you know, when the music consuming went down and there was no money for new talent. So it's totally different in only 5-6 years.
Thank you. I mean, I think the one thing that's clear and the one thing that's totally unique about our music is that it's a genuinely global family. And there is enough experience and best practice and knowledge across the world to help fix any problems that pop up in any other country. So I'm extremely confident that we can rise to the challenge, and I think the party definitely isn't over. It just needs to be more professional and safer. I think it'd be a good time to move to the audience for any questions. Hit anybody up on stage with any questions that you may have. We've got a good kind of quarter of an hour to have a good dialogue from stage to floor and back again. Hello, sir.
Thank you. Okay, congratulations for your comments, very interesting. Thank you to all of you. I think that the panel has been very good divided because they have participated online platform and promoter, could we say, Tommy, and record label. And yeah, I think each business model has its own liability in the whole, in all the dance music industry. But talking about the promoters, I think it is the future of the industry, because the live events made in festivals, made in clubs, is the most important business model because of the money it generates in comparison with the other business models. And Tommy has said, from my point of view, a very important thing. It is the safety in these live events. I don't know if you know, I am from Madrid, sorry, I've not been presented. I am Álvaro Díaz, a lawyer working for Sky, the Spanish Music and Publishers Collecting Society. And I don't know if you know what has happened in Madrid last week. It was to solve a litigation against a very famous Spanish promoter, because 4 young girls died because of a lack of safety measures in this event. It was a similar case that happened in Germany some years ago with the Love Parade. I think it is very important. This is the most important point in all the business model, because online platforms, we can download, we can stream music. It is okay. It has no important things. Maybe just paying royalties to the collecting societies, being clear with the users, the publishers, and the phonographic, the labels. I mean, they have their own business models. Just they have to be maybe ethical with their artists. But the promoters, I think, has more important liability with the industry, and also considering it is the most important business model in the industry. I don't know if you share this opinion with me.
I'm going to have to narrow that down to what's the question. It's quite hard to hear the question come the other way because of the acoustics. So can you just kind of tighten up that question a bit for us, please?
So just which is the main liable agent in this industry?
Liable agent?
Yeah, I mean, where is the most important thing for the support of the dance music industry in the future? promoter, online platform, or labels?
Do any of them exist separately in the future?
Maybe.
Yeah.
All of them together, and I think I'm talking on a global part because we serve promoters, labels, and artists with Technopol, and I think one can't live without the other. It's a chain of production. The music is created. It needs to be broadcasted. It needs to be sold. But the artists needs to live, so they need to play in festivals. I think you're right on the point that promoters need to be responsible. And I think when you see an industry where lots of money comes out, it's a bit like the bubble of the internet. Everybody wants its piece of it, but it's not the Far West. I mean, you're not like going gold digging or something like that. You're producing events, you're playing with the security of participants. In France, we have licenses to be a promoter. If you don't have a license, you can't promote an event. But if you have a license and you don't promote it well, you go to jail. So I think it's a responsibility, and I think it's a unity also. As Mark said, we're a big family, and since 25 or more, everybody knows each other, and we depend on each other to survive, because I think it's still a matter of survival for a lot of people, a lot of electronic music players in the world.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Hi everybody, my name's Tristan from London. I work with the Global Citizen Foundation for the United Nations, and I speak from experience, and I worked for 6 years in prison in South Africa in a territory that suffers unfortunately from a lot of violent crime, particularly gun crime and domestic violence. Drugs is a huge part of that, and I've always worked in entertainment at the same time, and I work with the Mandela family, and I work in electronic broadcasting. And part of what we're doing is lobbying the local governments. I was in The Hague a couple of weeks ago and in Amsterdam last week, deliberately to put the emphasis on what is positive about this industry. Bad press is exactly that. It's bad press. It's bad and it's sad. And as a result, knee-jerk reactions of banning things or closing things down are not the way forward, because they're not informative and they don't invite discussion, and there's no unity in doing that. So it's very sad to see things like what happened in Argentina, because promoters, 1,000 employees of the festival are now unemployed. DJs now can't go there. Maybe your record sales suffer, and it's a very simple response from governments to say, okay, fine, in California you can't have any more shows, done. And what we're trying to do, and I'm delighted to be here, and thank you very much to Ben Turner and Mark and everybody and the crew and everyone that's put this event on, it's amazing. This panel was really informative in that we have to take action. I can sit here and talk all day about the psychosis and the dual diagnosis disorders of people that take drugs and why they take them and what the stats are and all this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, I have a responsibility as a human to inform my fellow peers and be honest about it, and it starts with truth, and it needs to be called on that. And if we can do anything as an industry to work together, which is to lobby the governments, to tell them, here, like in Ibiza, from a tourism point of view, how many people on the island are employed in hospitality or in the clubs and bars and restaurants and all that sort of thing. It's a very positive thing. So for the sake of 3 or 4 really bad headlines, and that's what they are bad headlines, the underlying issues need to be dealt with in country by people like yourselves, the promoters, the Live Nations, the Ticket Masters, the CAA, United Talent, and the labels, to work as a team to make sure that we can build those legislations, and more importantly, that we can enforce them in those particular territories. So that's my 10 cents, and thank you very much, Mark, for having me.
Here, here. And we'll be delighted to work together. Brilliant.
Hi, Mark Grokefeld, Pioneer DJ. I guess this is a really question for you, Mark. So from Pioneer DJ's perspective, obviously we're we're sensitive to the issue, we're sensitive to the association and the brand association with, with the issue and with what's happening. And I know there's been a bit of talk about, of course, quite a lot of talk about drugs policy, and obviously, no one's really learned from the prohibition, and maybe that, that just say no just isn't working, right? And we sort of should be, just be educated, just be responsible. Perhaps that's a better tagline. I'm just getting to my question here. Is really, I think, something that Tommy mentioned. So the real takeout for me, and the real simple thing, is water, right? So we all know about the physiology of hydration and the need to stay hydrated, especially if it's MDMA. And when you're in a club and it's a club opening party and the club is charging €12 for 250 ml of water, that is irresponsible. And I think that the AFEM, it's a very simple solution, should try to push the use of water. And it's a quick fix in a way, and it's something that gets the clubs on board. So I'm just wondering what your view was on that, because you've got 15,000 people crammed in a room, and half of them are probably taking pills, and they've tried to be educated, but they just can't get a drink, and they can't afford a drink. So, and it affects us all. So we spoke about artists stepping forward, but clubs have got to step forward, right?
Yeah, I agree entirely. I think we'll probably find it's fraught with politics and challenges and economics and where's the money going to come from. But if you're talking about developing a sustainable industry for our fans, for the music, for the DJs, then I think that's the number one thing to focus on in the short term. Ultimately, water saves lives.
It is, Mark. In Holland, IDT gives water for free on their festivals, so it's already there. And if you want to take drugs, you can test it for free on certain locations in big festivals in Holland. So there are examples, only it needs to be followed around the world. But there are already good examples of what you can prevent and what you can do, Yeah,
absolutely, and a good point.
Hi, I'm Dean. I don't work for anyone cool, and I'm sorry that she had to come to me from so far away. Not as serious as a question, probably, but what are the AFEM doing to reach out to independent promoters? Because as all of you have said when talking about events, there's a lot of smaller shows that happen that may have issues, and I've promoted a few shows and gigs and stuff in London, all above board, but I don't feel like, as an independent promoter, there was any real guidance for us to go on regarding these issues, and essentially it came down to the club security handling things, and then that gives us a bad name as a promotion company if anything bad does happen. How is there any way that promoters can reach out to you guys to get information on this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question and a timely question, because we agreed this morning that we will pool all the resources from all of our promoter and live sector members to create best practice guides, and our membership is open to anyone. You don't have to be Live Nation scale or SFX scale to be a member. There's an entry-level membership. In fact, that's the fastest growing of our membership sectors now, is the $250 membership fee. So, and there's dollars, not pounds, deliberately. So expect within months to see best practice guides made available for promoters and anyone in the live sector.
Thank you for this important talk. I'm Jana, I work for Ultra Europe, but also some other festivals, smaller ones like Sonus in Croatia. And since witnessing such expansion in Croatian market, do you see that maybe in the future, if this persistence with deaths and really non-governmental support for handling drug issues? Would you see dance festivals move to a market where there's, let's say, softer rules or softer laws for drug-related issues? Thank you.
Not,
I really
not
hope
in
not.
our country.
I think we're in a really difficult position, and it doesn't look good for our industry if harm reduction standards are raised in a country and the demand for free water is placed on the promoters, and then the promoters decide to go somewhere else. I think that doesn't reflect well on us as a community at all. I think better to look at it the other way, which is every country should have the same high level of care for fans and patrons at events, and that's certainly the job that we want to take on.
Yeah, and it's also up to the agents and the managers not to confirm shows with promoters unless they've checked that you're putting your artist into an environment where the audience are being protected.
And actually, just to echo that, the theme that's continually coming out now is how every part of our industry has to work together. The agents can place on the rider the demands, they can place in the contract the demands for the standards. You know, it's not just about saying to a promoter over here, you need to do this. You know, it's about everybody stepping up and saying things have to improve, things have to be better.
Mark, just butting in. Great idea. It didn't come from me. Came from one of my team here.
Was that Rick?
Rick.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got all the ideas. I just the mouth. It's a good opportunity for sponsors, right, to come forward and take that ownership and sponsor the waterhole.
Spot on. Pioneer going to do it?
If we're happy to sponsor free water space opening.
Fab.
Can I just say the eco-footprint of plastic bottles at events?
Absolutely.
I mean, you
Absolutely.
know, why aren't we sponsoring water bottles and having water taps at gigs so people have a water bottle? We've got them in every other aspect, schools, gyms.
What a great brand opportunity. We should go there first.
We see
Pioneers are pioneering again.
In some festivals in Holland, they have reusable water containers branded with the festival or the partner. So that's an excellent idea. Free water, consumer goodie, everybody's happy, and gives more exposure for the brand. So we have an idea there.
Job done.
Hi there, my name is Benjamin. I'm a student. I recently did an exchange in Buenos Aires. I was there for 6 months, so I experienced like large-scale electronic music events there, and I want to share some of my experiences. I actually was horrified by things that I saw. Like, there's two fundamental issues that I saw, and it's been touched on here, that mostly a lot of the venues are way over capacity. There's just no control in terms of the amount of people that are coming in. And imagine the heat there as well. Like, people are like overheating, and it's quite unbearable. Also, clearly the water issue. People just can't afford water there. It's not like there's a lack of it or whatever. People just can't afford it. Like, I remember I was standing in Creamfields, and people were begging me for a sip of water. Like, it was to that level, and all around me there was people dropping. And we only hear about the people that die, but not about the people that get hospitalized and go into critical conditions, and maybe the rest of their lives are impacted by this one event, you know. So I think we really need to, you know, as the Europeans, as the pioneers, as we move into these emerging markets, we need to step up and be like and create these best practices. Because for me, as a young person, as the next generation of this industry, it was horrifying, and I would not want that to spread to new emerging markets. So, like, how can we standardize this and encourage promoters in these emerging markets to really take the initiative to protect the people?
Stop going to events that treat their customers that way. I mean,
don't send your DJs there.
Consumer power is at its peak, you know, and you know, I'm really sorry to hear you had that experience. I would have loved to have seen on social media, on Twitter platforms, people complaining about that at those kind of events, and so that it could have been, you know, so that I was more aware of incidents like that. I think, you know, people power at the moment, you know, consumer power is huge. And, you know, rather than young people thinking this is normal, they, you know, I'm not saying it's their responsibility at all, but equally it's a moment for everybody to, you know, again, best practices. We set best practices as an industry. People will know that unless there is free water provided for them at an event, that's not right, or it's not a good event to be at, etc., etc. I don't know. Mark, help me out here.
Well, you know, I'm going to stick my neck out and say the underlying cause of what you've just described is basically greed. That's what we need to tackle. And the causes of that are probably multiple within the industry. You know, agents charging fees that promoters can't afford in certain territories, so they either have to raise their ticket prices, then they don't sell tickets, or they sell more tickets, more than the venue can necessarily hold. So I think, you know, the first thing to do is the quick solution, which is water. The long-term solution is tackling greed, which is as a consequence of some lack of health within the industry. And I think that's where we all have to work responsibly together and create a much healthier ecosystem. And that's us. So thank you very much, everyone.